competencies. So these are things that if your patient is experiencing these things, they're getting into trouble physiologically, and you have to take action. Now we're going to learn about all of these things in patho, what can cause them. So a big part of your day is assessment. Now notice the last one, bad feeling about patient. You're going to develop an intuition. Listen to your gut feeling. You'll see nurses do this in clinical. They go in and they look at a patient and they say, something's not right. Something just is not right with this patient. They want you to listen to that and not say, oh. As students, let's take neuroscience, for example. When you check a person's level of consciousness. As a student, you're going to go in, if you're assigned to a patient who's had a head injury or has had a brain attack, a stroke, and you're going to have a list of neuroscience that you're going to have to do. You're going to learn about it in assessment. And you do this, and something's not right. The pupil's not reacting right. Now, as a student, most students say, oh no, I must be wrong. I'm just a student. You know, the RN before me said everything was fine, so everything must be fine. No. You're picking up something, so listen to yourself. Get your instructor. If your instructor is not with you during neuroscience, and say, can you just check this for me? Because this is what I'm seeing. That's why you have faculty on clinical with you. Okay? So Yale is listen to your gut. Tell somebody when you think something is not right. Even though you're looking at the patient, you can't pinpoint it, and that comes with experience. Okay, so now let's start talking about our drugs.
Who do you have that as like? It's different. The yellow.
But it's just, you don't, it's not going to be on the test. It's just for you to realize why this class is important. All classes are important. So, pharmaceutical companies are businesses. We know that. And they have a research and development arm, which chemists, biologists, develop new drugs. It takes years of research to develop a new drug, and billions with a B, billions of dollars to get that drug from that. This is what I think these chemicals are going to do in the body stage when somebody actually takes it. And many times it doesn't even get to the patient. So what are the stages that they go through? The preclinical stage is when the chemist and the biologist are working. And they're saying, well, you know, I think in a petri dish it's doing this, blah, blah, blah. And we're looking at what dose would be safe. What are we seeing for side effects? We're testing it on animals. I like animals as much as anybody else, but I would rather that they gave drug A to a mouse before they gave it to me. Right? That's the only way that we can find out what's going to happen. If the mouse takes it and instantly drops dead, this is probably not something we want to give a human. Then they go into clinical trials. They have people who volunteer to take this drug. Now, the pharmaceutical company has said, you know, as far as we know, testing it on animals, this drug is safe. So people volunteer to take this drug. And then we see what it does in the human body. The National Institutes of Health are what you support with your tax dollars. They are think tanks for the country. They're located in Bethesda, Maryland. Each building focuses on one body system. So there are buildings where they're just focusing on cardiac issues. and it's filled with scientists. Other buildings are just dealing with oncology, with cancer. And so you can go to the National Institute of Health free of charge. They will give you the latest cutting-edge treatment. It will be a drug in clinical trial. But if that's your last hope, many people say, you know, I will do that. Very often, these drugs end up being marketed to millions of people. In the beginning, we test them on a few hundred people. We find out that yes, this drug is safe, it's doing what it's supposed to do, and then we send it to the FDA for approval. It can take up to 2 years, and the FDA may require additional research studies to be done. And then it's approved and given to the masses. Now, my recommendation to you is that you never take a new drug that's on the market. You know, we all want the newest phone, we want the newest car, we want the newest whatever it is. With medication, don't do that. Why? Because we really don't know how that medication is going to act until we give it to millions of people. You hear all the time about drugs being pulled off the market. They were safe in the clinical trials with a few hundred people, maybe 1,000 people. When we gave them to millions of people, then we found out it had some pretty serious side effects. So stay with the tried and true stuff if you can. That's what the post-marketing surveillance is. If a physician or a nurse practitioner has a patient, they've given them a new drug, and of course it's been approved by the FDA, it appears safe, and then the patient suddenly has an adverse event, they have to report that. And then we keep track of all these reports coming in. Gee, this is not just some idiosyncratic thing that happened to this patient. We're seeing it in a lot of people. They'll pull the drug off the market. So we have two types of effects that a drug can have. The first is therapeutic. It's doing what we want it to do. The second are side effects. And side effects can be helpful or not helpful. All drugs, virtually all drugs, have a side effect of nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. That doesn't mean 100% of the people who take the drug have nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea, but a good portion do. It's a side effect. It's not life-threatening. I'm giving you an example here of a beneficial side effect. Rogaine is actually an antihypertensive drug. When we gave it to patients men who had male pattern baldness, they go back to their cardiologist and say, gee, my hair's growing again. This is great. That's happening with other people who take Rogaine. And it did. So now Rogaine is the topical application. So adverse effects can be expected or unexpected. I've given you an example here of aspirin. Aspirin is an anticoagulant. It also is a pain reliever. It's an anti-inflammatory. But one of the things you'll learn about when we do cardiac is that we give aspirin to people to stop their blood from clotting so they don't have another heart attack. Now, an adverse effect is because I'm stopping your blood from clotting so quickly, you can hemorrhage. That's an expected adverse effect. It is possible that because I'm giving you aspirin to stop a heart attack, you're actually going to develop an ulcer, a bleeding ulcer, and hemorrhage. It's a risk that we take. Idiosyncratic means it's unique to your particular body chemistry. It's not something that we expect. It happens. 99 people can take penicillin, nothing happens. The 100th person takes it, and they go into anaphylaxis because they have a massive allergic reaction to it. That's idiosyncratic. It's unique to that person. Chronic adverse effect. When we talk about anti-inflammatory drugs and we talk about prednisone, I give you prednisone to calm down inflammation. Maybe you have rheumatoid arthritis. So after I give you prednisone, your adrenal glands that normally produce cortisol say, I don't have to work anymore. And they just kind of sit there not doing anything. If you suddenly stop taking the prednisone, then you're going to go into shock because your body's not producing the cortisol. And then there's a delayed adverse effect. When we give chemotherapeutic agents, there are some chemotherapeutic agents that it is known that within 10 or 20 years, there's a higher incidence of a different type of cancer caused by this chemotherapeutic agent. But it's a chance that we take. Okay, here's your first question. Now, when I give you these questions, please don't try to write down the question. You're not going to see the question on a test. So just read the question, think of an answer, and then we'll talk about it. The concepts that I explain when I talk about the answer are things that you're going to need. And but you don't have to try to write down the question. Okay, here's your first one. Why are over-the-counter drugs beneficial? And it's only because they are less expensive. Over-the-counter drugs are pretty dangerous. Why? Because people try to treat their symptoms themselves, and they may be masking a dangerous health deviation. Most people recognize that over-the-counter products are medications and will report them when you do a history. Absolutely. If I can find a CVS and Stop and Shop and ShopRite and Walgreens, it can't be medicine. And I can buy 100 tablets of aspirin for about $5. That can't be medicine. So you have to ask them very specific questions. What over-the-counter, what medicine do you buy at like Stop and Shop? Things like aspirin, like, oh yeah, this is, and then they'll give you a whole list. Why don't you give them an example? Drug names. We are not going to try to learn the chemical name because we would never remember it. Do I have any chemists in here? Any?
I just have a minor in chemistry.
That's okay. That's all right. You're better than I am. I almost didn't make it through school because of chemistry. All right, so I'm certainly not going to say we're going to remember the chemical names because we will never do it. However, we are going to use generic names in this class. Why? Because that's what you're going to see on your licensing exam. So, the ending of many generic drugs tell you what class of drug it is. So you're going to be memorizing the endings of generic names so you can recognize the drug class. Because that's what they're going to be asking you on your licensing exam and your HESI. I like OLOL, you'll learn it's a beta blocker. There are at least 50 different beta blockers on the market. Their generic names all end in OLOL. You can't memorize. It's a waste of brain space trying to memorize 50 drug names just for one class of drug. But when you see OLOL, boom, I know what that is, and I know how it acts. Trade names are something that the pharmaceutical company gives a drug so that people can remember the name easily. And I've given you an example there. 7-fluoro-1, that's the chemical name. The generic name is diazepam, but the trade name is Valium. Now notice the generic names are written in lowercase letters. Okay, which statement is true concerning internet pharmacies? more than 1% are accredited. So when you go on the internet, you find whatever it is that you can buy less expensively, it's probably best not to do that unless the pharmacy has been accredited. Only 4% are in compliance with state laws. You can buy anything over the internet. You do not necessarily need a prescription for it. 11,000 have been reviewed. Only 1% have been accredited. If you go to CVS or Walgreens Internet Pharmacy, yes, they are accredited. So teach your patients, if you're going to buy meds over the internet, make sure that that company is accredited. And it will say right on the website. This really scares me. 16% do not have secure sites. You put your credit card information in there, it's out for anybody who wants to use it. Again, unless it's an accredited pharmacy, you do not know what you're buying, where it's being manufactured, or what's actually in it. Now, when you do a health history, you're going to ask your patients about smoking. Have you started smoking? Have you stopped smoking? Because smoking affects the metabolism of drugs. So we need to know if they've just quit smoking, and then you praise them, because that helps save their lungs, their bladder, their pancreas. If they've started smoking, tell them we need to know that. So tell them, you know, if you start smoking, we need to know it because it affects how drugs.
It might be a silly question, but now with people that have marijuana licenses, I don't know, like, the etiology or physiology of how that could potentially affect certain medications or even does. So, like, I would hope to do it with patients that, oh, well, I don't smoke cigarettes, but I have been taking medical marijuana. Like, how do you document that?
That you would document it just like that. It's the carcinogens in the tobacco leaf that seems to cause the cancers that we're seeing. But we haven't had a lot of people that we follow who are using medical marijuana. They're going to be doing a lot of research in Colorado. Really? No, because it's so common, and that's where they're going to be focusing their research. What's happening because you're smoking this marijuana leaf? We know what happens with a tobacco leaf. What happens with a marijuana?
Right now, there's not really research.
I mean, we have research that says smoking marijuana for many people is a gateway to other drugs. But we don't know physiologically. Herbal products. Make sure how you ask that question is in a non-confrontational way, because many patients will not tell you because they don't want to be lectured by you that, oh, that's silly, you shouldn't use herbal products. We need to know which ones they use because some of them interact with the medications that we give them. So, you've got a patient, they're in a clinical drug trial. If you work at Yale, you'll be working with patients who are in clinical drug trials, and they're told that they can receive the drug or a placebo. So what is a placebo? It is an inert substance. It's not going to have any action in the body at all. We don't tell patients which one they get. If they're in a clinical trial, the pill that they get looks identical to the active ingredient pill. We want to see how they're going to react. Okay, get up and run around for 5 minutes, but just 5 minutes.